And a federal judge in Pennsylvania has ruled against the Little Sisters of the Poor in their ongoing fight against the Obamacare contraceptive abortion mandate. The court revoked a 2017 Trump-era conscience exemption that will now force the sisters to include abortifacients and contraception in their employee health care plans or risk heavy fines. Here to weigh in on this story and more, President of the Catholic League, Bill Donohue. Bill, thank you for being here. The Becket Fund, who are representing the Little Sisters, announced on August 13th the following. In a nationwide ruling against a Trump administration religious conscience rule, a federal district court today ruled against the Little Sisters of the Poor. The court sided with Pennsylvania and New Jersey in their years-long effort to force the Little Sisters to provide contraceptive and abortion coverage in their health care plans. Today's ruling keeps that effort alive, and the Little Sisters have vowed to appeal the decision. Bill, these nuns have spent 14 years in court fighting this Obamacare mandate. Now their conscience protection's been revoked. Why is the federal judiciary ignoring these conscience protections, forget the Constitution, and torturing this small order of nuns?
Why are they ignoring the express words of the United States Supreme Court 5 years ago? The Little Sisters have already won on this. This is born out of vindictiveness. This is harassment. We all know they're going to win in the end, and so do the people who are weighing in against them. They've won before and they'll win again. People should understand, though, what's at stake. In 1993, President Bill Clinton signed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It was supported by people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. It was a great amendment, a great law which protected religious liberty for everybody. But obviously what's happened in more recent years, the Democratic Party has changed. They no longer believe in religious liberty, which is why they have this war going on against the Little Sisters again. I also want to remind the viewers, this is not just about contraception. This is also about abortion. In the Obamacare and in the entire litigation against the Little Sisters, they expressly talk about abortion-inducing drugs. That's often overlooked. This is an attempt by the secularists in the Democratic Party to punish Catholics in particular and anybody else who might stand up against them. But this is all born out of vindictiveness. It has nothing whatsoever to do with justice.
Bill, as you mentioned, the sisters won protection from the Supreme Court in 2016. They won it again in 2020. Yet Pennsylvania and New Jersey continue to drag them back into court to attack these conscience rights. And if this ruling stands, the sisters would have to go back to the pre-2017 rules and apply to Health and Human Services for accommodation. But the drugs would still be provided through the sisters' health care plan, Bill. Now, people like Michael Sean Winters says that applying to the HHS for accommodation is a perfectly acceptable compromise, and a broad religious exemption is not necessary. You would say what?
Why should anybody have to compromise when you're dealing with fundamental constitutional rights, which have already been resolved in the High Court to begin with? We don't compromise when it comes to gay rights, do we? We don't compromise when it comes to African American rights or anybody else, nor should we. If we're talking about principles, if you're talking about sound judicial judgments, then there's no compromise here. We all know that the sisters will ultimately win. This is just a matter of virtue signaling. The judges are showing how much they believe in their idea of liberty, which doesn't mean anything in terms of religious liberty whatsoever. So I find this whole thing to be basically fundamentally dishonest as well as unjust.
Bill, the Archdiocese of Newark is making headlines this week for settling 2 abuse cases with accusers despite a Vatican investigation that uncovered no evidence to support the allegations of abuse. This against a New Jersey priest in the 70s and early 80s, and that priest happens to be the retired Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio. Now, DiMarzio has repeatedly and vigorously denied all these accusations against him. You say the Archdiocese of Newark, by paying out these settlements, are selling out Bishop DiMarzio. Why?
Well, they are. Listen, we have a lot of good bishops in this country, but it'd be hard to find one who's better than Bishop DiMarzio. He's one of the greatest bishops that we have in the United States. And he has been harassed by Mitchell Garabedian out of Boston and others They're just trying to just create havoc with him because he stood up bravely against bills in New York, which singled out the Catholic Church and never went after the public schools. This is all payback, just as pretty much as it is with the Little Sisters of the Poor. There's a thread here. Listen, DiMarzio was in Jersey City back in the 70s and 80s when he was a priest. They came up with these false allegations 50 years later. 50 years later, it got nowhere. The Vatican investigated in an exhaustive 2-year investigation. And they said there wasn't even the semblance of proof. And now they're trying to say in the Archdiocese of Newark, after, and they didn't ask DiMarzio, by the way, to sign off on this. He never authorized it whatsoever. He was just thrown to the curb. They decided now we're going to pay it off because we don't want to have any more pain. Well, they've created pain for an innocent man. DiMarzio was found innocent by the Vatican. He took a lie detector test. No one's ever been able to prove anything about him. He's never abused anybody his entire life. This guy Garabedian hates the Catholic Church. I've proven it because I sent an ex-CIA agent into a SNAP meeting a number of years ago where he was present, and he referred to the Catholic Church as an evil institution. This is not about justice. This is about punishment. This is about hate speech. This is a guy who went after a priest, Charles Murphy, sued him twice, got nowhere. Even the Boston Globe went after Garabedian and said, why are you punishing this man? He's now dead. I called up Garabedian myself and I said, how do you feel now that even the Boston Globe's not on your side? He was a raging lunatic, screaming and yelling at me like an absolute madman. Now, this is the kind of people who are out there. And I'm telling you, this is despicable. If a priest or anybody else is guilty of abuse, throw the book at him. But when you have innocent men like DiMarzio, and you have the Archdiocese of Newark simply writing a check, you know what that does? It just invites more people. They see blood in the water, and they're going to come after you again. DiMarzio does not deserve this, and what the Archdiocese has done under Cardinal Tobin is simply immoral.
Bill, I know as a New Yorker you've been following the rise of New York State Assemblyman Zoran Mandani, born in Uganda to Indian parents, had a rather elite upbringing. He's ahead in the polls in the New York City mayoral race. But he calls himself a democratic socialist. And really, he's a communist in many ways. Give me your thoughts. He's been very critical of the human rights record of the United States. What does his background tell us? What do his public statements tell us about the direction he means to take not only the city, but his party?
Well, I've just completed, I have to polish it up a little bit. I'll be releasing it probably in the beginning of September, a very lengthy piece on this man. He is the most inauthentic public person I've ever come across, at least in many, many, many years. He's lied about his own ancestry. When he went to Columbia University and they rejected him, and he checked off the box African American. He's no more African American than I am. He's born to Indian parents. He says he's for the poor. He punishes the poor. He wants to punish them by denying them charter schools. He won't allow them school choice. This is a man who says he represents the poor and yet lives a life of luxury. His parents are multimillionaires. His father is a Marxist. He's a Marxist. He says he wants to abolish private property. He wants to abolish the prison system. He wants the police to not worry about domestic violence. He wants to send social workers. That's right, social workers to deal with the wife beaters. Everything I've said is true, and so much more. He's continually railing against the human rights record of the United States. What does he have to say about where he was born in Uganda, one of the biggest hellholes in all of Africa? He says nothing about that. There are so many inconsistencies here. He says that people, the poor should live in rent-stabilized housing units. He lives in them, and he's not poor. Andrew Cuomo was right to call him out on that. This is a man who wants to nationalize grocery stores. That's right. He wants the government to take over grocery stores. They can't even run the post office right. Now they're going to take care of bananas and pizza.
But before I run out of time, what will this mean to the Jewish and Christian communities in New York if this guy wins?
Well, yeah, I'm going to be contacting them. Observant Jews certainly are very much opposed to him, and I think many Catholics are. He's getting his biggest support, ironically, not from the poor. The poor voted for Cuomo. But the evidence is there. It's not a matter of opinion, all right? The evidence is there. Who voted for Mandani in the primary in June? rich, young, white kids. A lot of these gals from Brooklyn who were involved in the Black Lives Matter thing, and a number of South Asians. So, yeah, he's not a man of the people. You ask the Puerto Ricans who run the bodegas in the Bronx, what happens if you have nationalized grocery stores? It'll run them out of business. The poor are not the ones that want them. It's all virtue signaling and feelings of guilt and freebies for everybody. Free health care, free child care. I mean, the guy's an economic illiterate on steroids.
Bill, we will have to leave it there, but you can follow the work of the Catholic League as well as commentary by Bill Donohue at catholicleague.org. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.